A conversation ended 6 hours ago. You're still rewriting it. You've eaten. You've answered emails. You've talked to 3 other people. None of it turned the loop off. And in the next 8 minutes, I'm going to tell you exactly why your brain does this, what it's actually trying to accomplish, and why almost everything you've been told about it is incomplete. Quick question. Before we go deeper, when was the last time you replayed a conversation the other person doesn't even remember having yesterday, this morning, right now, while I'm talking? If your honest answer made you flinch, stay. Because what's happening in your brain isn't random. It looks like overthinking. It feels like anxiety. But underneath, it's something more specific. And most people never learn the real name for it. You replay conversations for hours because your brain is trying to finish something the world wouldn't let you finish. There's a system in your brain called the default mode network. It activates when you're not focused on an external task, when you're driving, showering, lying in bed, walking from one room to another. It's the part of you that turns inward when nothing outside is demanding your attention. One of its real jobs is social review. Your brain scans past interactions to extract meaning. What was said? What wasn't said? What changed in someone's tone? What your body felt in the room? In simple terms, your brain is rewatching the moment to find what went wrong or what you didn't get to say. For most people, this system runs quietly. It checks in, processes the day, and steps aside. For you, it doesn't step aside. It stays on. It loops. Because something in that conversation didn't resolve, and your brain refuses to file it away until it does. Researchers call this post-event processing. Basically, your brain keeps replaying a social moment after it ends. And if you do this intensely, it often means something most people don't expect. You're highly attuned to social signals. You notice micro-shifts, half-second hesitations, small changes in energy, the exact moment the room changed. Once your brain collects that data, it doesn't throw it away. It runs the conversation again and again, looking for the one detail that explains the discomfort. You're not stuck. You're processing. Now pattern interrupt. Try this with me for 10 seconds. Think of the last conversation you replayed. What was the exact moment? The loop starts, the pause, the look, the sentence, the tone. Hold that moment in your mind, because that moment is rarely about the words. It's about what your nervous system registered. Here's the part that gets uncomfortable. Most of these replays aren't really about the conversation. They're about you, about how you showed up, about whether you were heard correctly, about whether the version of you that walked away is the version of you you actually wanted to be in the world. Every replay is your mind quietly asking, was that really me? Did I represent myself accurately? Or did something get lost in translation? And the people who do this most intensely often share something specific. They have a high capacity for what psychologists call absorption. They don't just remember conversations, they enter them. They don't just hear words, they feel the room, the temperature, the tension, the weight of what wasn't said. So when something feels off, it doesn't just register intellectually. It lodges somewhere physical, and it stays there until your nervous system decides it's safe to let go. That's why telling yourself, just stop thinking about it, never works. Your brain isn't replaying it because you chose to. It's replaying it because something inside you is still waiting for closure that the original moment didn't provide. Quick check. Do you replay it more at night or right after it happens? Calm at night or after? I read every one. Now here's the harder layer. Why do some conversations replay for hours and others vanish? The second they end, it's not random. Your brain has a filter. The conversations that loop are the ones that touch something unresolved underneath them. A moment where you felt slightly misread. A second where you didn't say what you actually meant. A pause where someone could have understood you and the chance passed before you reached for it. Your brain isn't replaying the conversation. It's replaying the gap between what you said and what you wanted to say, between how you came across and how you wanted to be seen, between who you are inside your own head and who you became under pressure. And every replay is a small, private attempt to close that gap. Let me ask you something, honestly. When you replay a conversation in your head, do you usually make yourself sound more articulate, more composed, more in control than you actually were in the moment? If you do, that's not vanity. That's grief. You're grieving the version of yourself that didn't get to show up, the one who knew the right words but couldn't reach them in time, the one who sees clearly now what was happening, only after the door has already closed. Most people walk away from a conversation and forget it. You walk away and start writing the version where you finally got to be, all of yourself. There's a cost to this. The hours add up. Your mental real estate gets crowded. You finish the conversation in your head, but the other person has already moved on. So the loop has nowhere to land, which means it lands inside you. Then the shame creeps in. You tell yourself you're wasting time, that you should be present, that normal people don't do this. And the shame becomes its own loop underneath the original one. The pattern multiplies. But here's what the shame is hiding from you. This system you built, the replays, the rehearsals, the after-the-fact editing, is one of the most sophisticated emotional processing tools the human mind can run. You're not malfunctioning, you're metabolizing. You're taking experiences that happen too fast and breaking them down slowly enough that you can actually digest them. Most people never do this work. They walk through life with hundreds of half-finished conversations rattling inside them, and they call themselves fine because they've never learned to look. You look, that's the difference. And yes, the cost of looking is that you carry more weight, but the benefit is that nothing stays unprocessed forever. Every interaction eventually becomes something you understand. The goal isn't to make the replays stop overnight. The goal is to recognize what they're for, to notice when a loop has finished its work and let it close, to build enough safety in real-time conversations that fewer of them need to be relitigated later, to trust, slowly, that you can say what you mean while you're still in the room instead of only after you've left it. The replays don't disappear. They just take up less of you because you finally understand what they were always doing. If this video put words to something you've been carrying alone for years, leave a comment telling me one conversation you've been replaying longer than you'd like to admit. Just one. Because someone scrolling all those comments tonight is going to read yours and feel, maybe for the first time in a long time, like they aren't the only one whose mind works this way. You aren't stuck in the past. You're building a version of yourself that won't repeat the same gap twice. And that quiet, hour-long work nobody sees you doing is exactly how a deeper kind of person is made. So, if you want more of these, consider subscribing, because we're going to keep unpacking how your mind actually works